What's up? I'm David Burns, EAS Certified Master Beekeeper. I am pumped, on fire, and excited today to share with you more information that I've been discovering about adding wax to frames and how bees respond to that. You guys went crazy over the last video that I made about adding wax to these plastic foundation, and we saw in that recent video that I made how fast they can draw all of that wax out in just 2 weeks. The one that I didn't put any extra wax on, it only had wax from the factory. It didn't get touched by the bees. They snubbed it. They ignored it. They treated it as an outcast. It was like nothing on it. Now, many of you think that this was the first time that I have experimented with this. It's not. I actually have been experimenting with adding wax to comb frames like this for well over a decade. Can you believe it? In fact, in just a minute, I'm going to show you a great video that I made in 2014 when I actually conducted a very similar experiment in August. It was August the 3rd. Watch this video all the way through, because in the clip that I'm going to show you from back in 2014, I actually performed the test on August the 3rd. I'm going to give you a spoiler alert right now. The results were startling. And this is going to be very insightful. I'm going to teach you guys using that video from 2014, almost a decade ago. And we're going to look at what we did this time about 3 to 4 weeks later and talk about the differences. It's going to be a lot of fun. Plus, you guys slammed me with pages and pages and pages of questions. I pulled out 3 or 4 pages in small print. I had to get my reading glasses, but I pulled out 3 or 4 pages of comments that I thought were really good questions that I want to ask. So let's get started with answering your questions now about the video and me adding wax. And then we're going to go to the clip from 10 years ago and talk more about the differences and the impact that adding wax to frames can have on getting those frames drawn out faster. Now let's get into some of your comments. I live in Ottawa, Canada. I did the same experiment one day after you did. I had 0 wax drawn out in 2 weeks. So my question is, did you feed them or not? I did not. No, I did not feed that hive at all. Remember my criteria in the first video I made where I waxed those frames. If you missed that, you need to watch that. The first criteria was that they had to be an extremely strong colony packed with bees, and it has to be a moderate dearth, and it also has to be some nectar flow, a little bit of nectar flow, like it can't be just 0. So there was a slight mild nectar flow going on during that time. And the other criteria is that all the frames in there have to already be drawn out. And so all their honey supers have to be filled up already. That was my criteria. So no, I did not feed them. Next question, David, would it make a difference if you were using wax foundation? No, I don't think so. If you can delicately add additional wax, even to wax foundation, you're going to come up with the same result. It's going to be better all the way around. Cool video. I guess they don't touch unwaxed frames. Are you going to leave them in for 2 more weeks to see if they fill them up with nectar? Let me clarify that. They are wax frames. The one that they didn't actually touch, it is wax from the factory. If you watch the original video, I'll leave a picture of it over here and a link in the description. But part 1, where I actually waxed them, they are already pre-waxed from the factory. And so I just added more. So even with wax on it from the factory, it wasn't enough on that one frame for bees to touch it. So if I leave them on there for 2 more weeks, will they fill those up with nectar from maybe my goldenrod or asters in the fall? Hey, I'm going to leave it on there and see. So watch a future video. Another comment, that's pretty cool that they drew out the frames in 2 weeks. I understand why you wouldn't leave the super on, but if you're feeding your bees, can you leave the super on so the bees have a place to store food? It's kind of tricky because I've said this so many times before, I would never leave a super on unless all 8 frames are pretty much capped over in a honey super. because the bees move up in the wintertime, and if they move up into partially filled frames, then they're going to get stranded up there with no food. So fortunately for me, I always feed my bees my winter bee kinds in the wintertime, insulation, ventilation, and food, and so I don't have to worry about my bees filling up these supers this late. Next question is, did the bees consume any of the honey stores for energy to create draw out the wax? I'm getting my first hive next spring, and I read that bees consume approximately 3 pounds of honey to produce 1 pound of wax. Do you know if that's true, and have you ever tested that theory? Yeah, bees use a lot of nectar or honey to activate their wax glands. In this case, it's a pretty telltale sign because I left one frame untouched and they didn't touch it. All of that says to me is that no, they're not going to use any of their resources to make wax. And to prove it, we did not wax extra coat on the one frame in the middle. And so they did not want to use any of their own resources to do that. They only took all of the wax that I already had on there and they pulled it, they stretched it, they used it. I added enough to actually more than enough to draw those out that much. So I know I'm 99% certain, nobody's 100%, but I'm 99% certain that they did not use any stored resources to actually make wax in their wax glands. That's a very good question though. This was awesome. I added a super without wax for over a month and nothing has happened. I need to add wax. Question: how to store super that has not been drawn out, or a super that the bees did draw the comb out but has no nectar or honey stored in it? That's a good question. In my case, if the bees don't touch that super, they drew it out, I'm going to store it in a nice cool place in my building that's climate controlled. Humidity is kept about humidity doesn't get above 60%, 60%. And I'll store my honey supers in there. It's bug free, it's relatively low humidity, and I make sure they air out. Never bag up your supers, they'll mold and mildew. Got to keep them exposed to air, some light, and make sure the bugs can't get them. You don't want ants to get on them. It's always a good idea to freeze them if they have had, or they do have, some pollen or nectar or honey in it, because you could have small hive beetle eggs that will hatch and destroy them, or even wax moth eggs as well. Good question. Hi David, what would you do if those got partially filled with honey, specifically if it wasn't capped and you were thinking maybe not condensed enough to harvest? Would you save them for food or leave them in? Again, I've got a big chest freezer. I'm going to drop those supers that are partially filled and I'm going to keep them frozen until spring. I'm new to beekeeping. I was wondering if I should add a super. I think that's what that means. I have tons of Japanese knotweed. The bees love it. Do you think that would make a difference? You know, if you do have a lot of knotweed and it's showing that it's going to be a good nectar flow, might as well throw a super on there, add wax. But in your case, if you don't have a lot of time left, the bees are going to have to work hard not only to draw that out, big foragers have to gather it, then they have to dry it down in order to make more wax to cap it over. They will make wax for their cappings. They're not going to use wax that you give them. So they have a tall order to accomplish what you're hoping they'll do, but hey, you won't know until you try it. Charles, why wouldn't you leave it on if the fall flow is about to start and the rest of the hive is full? Because historically, where I live in Illinois, my fall flow is not impressive at all. Doggone it, I wish it was. Hats off to all of you. I am jealous of all of you that have a tremendous fall flow of pollen and nectar, and you harvest honey and all that in the fall. I just don't have it in Illinois. We have a lot of asters, we have a lot of goldenrod, and I think 1 out of 20 years I've been able to harvest a little something from the fall. So I don't bank on it, no way. It depends on the weather, how much rain you got, and all that, but right now I'm not impressed. We're gonna have our first hard freeze in less than 30 days. That's gonna kill everything off. There's no way my bees in 30 days are gonna impress me. So I'm pretty much calling it not gonna happen. But maybe where you live, it will make a big difference. So we'll see. Another comment, like so many leaving comments, I am in my first year of beekeeping. I've watched so many of your YouTube beekeeping videos. Thank you very much. And think yours are the best I've watched. Well, double thank you for that. I appreciate you saying that. Thank you. I'm in England. I love England. I love the UK. I want to ride my bike in the UK. I'm a gravel bike rider, and I've been a bike rider all my life, a bike racer actually, cycle racing when I was younger. But maybe one day I'll pack my bike up and head to England and ride my bike around England somewhere. But I'm in England and I'm using wax foundation. Is there a reason you use plastic? Love your videos. Thanks again. I grew up using wax foundation. It was fun. That's all we had back then. A lot of work though. I had to, rewire them and embed the wire and had the pins on the side of the wood and everything. I like doing that. It's a lot of fun. I don't fault anybody that likes to use wax foundation. I think it's a hoot. I think all beekeepers need to know how to use it. But I guess out of laziness, plastic has worked well for me. It's easy, it's quick. When you get a lot of hives, it's just one less thing to have to manage. That's the only reason, really. Hey, David. Hey, this is from Brad. Hey, David. Was all those foundations originally heavy waxed or no? Great learning test. Yeah, Brad, watch that first video. I'll leave a link in the description for the first video of me waxing the foundation. It was only wax from the company that I bought them from. And so I never feel that's enough wax. I really don't. I think companies are stingy, extra stingy. I don't know why they don't put more on there. It would solve so many issues. It would solve the issues of wonky comb being drawn out. It would solve the issue of bees taking so long to draw it out if you just put more wax on it. But I guess maybe it's a cost ratio of, how much do they really want to invest in that? And in the spring, most bees are able to draw that out just fine, but if you try and do it late in the year, that's not enough wax on there. So they were just originally waxed from the company. I added extra wax. In the video below, watch that again. If you haven't seen it, I added heavy wax that I harvested, my own wax from my cappings of my honey supers that I harvest. But I'll leave a link in the description for you guys that don't have wax available that you can buy and put wax on there, melt it down. All right, next comment. Great video, David. How can I get wax if I don't have any? Great. Keep the information coming. I belong to the West Alabama Beekeepers in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Oh yeah, I just mentioned that. Yeah, I'll leave a link in the description where you can buy wax that I prefer. I've had the best luck with these pellets. I'm going to leave a link for you. All right, next comment. Thank you for trying that. Maybe they would fill it during the goldenrod. Your videos are super. Yeah, we don't know about the goldenrod having enough nectar to really make a difference. I'm going to leave it on there and test it. After my first frost and everything is killed, all the plants are killed, I'm going to go out there and make a video and see, did they add any nectar into the drawn comb? Watch it all be capped over and ready for harvest. I'll be like, wow, I misread that. That would be a good misread too. I hope that happens. I really do. All right, next question. Enjoyed seeing the conclusion of the experiment. Do you think if the super was placed on top instead of where you had it, it would have had honey or at least nectar in the frames? Thanks, and I appreciate you sharing what you know. We don't really know. I don't know. I thought by putting it down below the super, it would have had a better chance of being drawn out and filled up. But who knows, right? I really don't know. Good question. Could you have supplied extra sugar water to help? Yes, I could have. I really could have, but I didn't want to skew the results. I just wanted to see what a hive would do on their own without any assistance. Would it have helped? Possibly. But you need to watch a video coming up that I made in 2014 where I did it earlier in the year on August, I think the 3rd, and there was still a slight nectar flow going on, and those results are going to really surprise you. So watch, it's going to be coming up in just a minute. So hang around for that video. Another comment said, great video and interesting, if not unexpected result. My question is, if you left it there, would they eventually draw it out or would they forever leave it empty? Talking about the one in the middle that's empty. I'm going to take a chance from my experience and say that they're never going to touch that this year. because they don't want to use their resources to make wax now. They're not in a wax making mood. They're in a kind of like save resources. There's no nectar, it's a dearth. Let's don't waste our resources trying to build comb out. So they're going to ignore it. Definitely going to ignore it. Yep. Good question though. I love your videos. I'm new to beekeeping. Well, glad you're new to beekeeping. I watch all your videos. Oh my gosh, you've seen me when I was younger. Wow. What are your plans for those frames? Will you store them for next year? Yeah, if they don't do anything with it, unless they pack them full of nectar and dry them out and cap them over, I'm pulling them off, storing them in my cool, low humidity room. Absolutely. Next comment, if you remove the super, could that removal of space trigger a swarm since there'll be more bees in the now smaller space? No, I mean, let me say this. Anything's possible, right? Anything's possible. But remember, I've got the same number of bees, plus some that have emerged over the last 2 weeks, but not that big of an increase really. And I would say that the hive isn't really in an attitude of swarming, but yeah, it's possible. So you're thinking overcrowding them, like they enjoyed the space, they were kind of like stretching and enjoying themselves. If I remove that super now, I do not expect that to be any different. Because remember, bees are dying, so many bees are dying every day. In theory, if the queen lays 1,000 eggs a day, you got 1,000 bees dying a day. And you've got your summer bees dying every 36 days. And so, wow, I've got a lot of bees dying, reducing that number. That my winter bees of winter physiology aren't really emerging so much yet to complement the ones that are dying. So I'm not worried about a space problem at all. But that, I think that's a good question. It merits some attention. Absolutely. Next comment. Thanks for sharing this video. I'll be adding wax for my frames for sure next year. Do I see the round hive in the background? How is that hive doing? The little round hive, the little train that could, the little round hive that could, it did. It could and it did. And it's amazing. They're doing great. They're doing outstanding. It's year number 2 for them. They made it through last winter in the chicken coop. And I'm probably going to put them back in there because that worked. I'm not an idiot. You know, so since that worked, I'm going to do it again. Why experiment if it worked, right? I'm not going to leave them where they're at. So I'll put them back in the chicken coop by that door, and we'll see how it goes in round 2. The little circle hive, I can't treat it for mites. They do have some beetles. It's just kind of hands off, do your thing, good luck. So they're doing good, not bad at all. I got a couple of more questions, 2 more, and then I'm going to show you the video clip from 2014 where I do the similar experiment, only with different results. Next question. Were you feeding your bees at all during the dearth? I was not feeding that hive that I did the experiment with on during the dearth, and I haven't started feeding them either. No, I do believe in feeding bees during the fall in the dearth to build up my bees of winter physiology. That is vital. That's how you get bees through the winter. But no, I wasn't feeding that hive at all, and still not actually. All right, last question. I need to get more supers drawn out. Will that method work in the spring before the honey flow starts, or does it have to be warm weather like now? Oh no, it'll work in the spring. Always wax your frames. If you're starting as a new beekeeper, hear me out. Get some wax, melt it down, add it to your foundation. It will speed up your bees drawing out the frames so much. It will help your frames be drawn out more evenly. It will just be wonderful. 10 to 100x times better than if you do nothing at all. Absolutely. Now, friends, let me tell you, I'm going to show a video clip right now from 2014, which was 9 years ago. And I want to 9, 10, 11, yeah, 9 years ago. And I want to show you the results of this experiment because I did it during a heavier nectar flow than I did this current experiment. You'll get to see a 9-year younger me, and things will look a little bit different. The quality of the video is poor because back then I didn't have equipment and I didn't know much about making videos. But you'll be able to see how the results turned out. So let's take a moment. I want you to watch this, and then I'm going to jump back in here for some closing comments. Hi, I'm David Burns, Certified Master Beekeeper. Today I've been doing a little bit of experimenting to see how much it helps if you add extra wax to plastic foundation for the bees to draw the comb out. So I've done a little experiment, if you can follow me. I've already taken this hive, I've opened it up, and I've had this, this is actually a shallow super that I added frames to, and I put it down underneath a deep super for honey, and then a medium super for honey above 2 deep hive bodies. So if you can take a look here, what I've done, maybe from this side, Sherry, would be better for you, but I've actually wrote down what I did to each of these frames so that I can see if the bees favored any certain amount of wax on the comb. So like my first frame here, not too surprised because it's on the outside edge of the hive, which they usually don't pull out until last, and it says none, which means there's just the coating that comes with plastic foundation sprayed on. So bees haven't done much there where that's expected. Next to it though, as you can see, now these were, today is, these have been on there about a week. They've been on 8 days. So this says excessive wax coating, which I put on August the 3rd. And as you can see with the excessive wax coating, they've drawn it out nicely, even toward the outside wall. Now the next one I just put on, I didn't put excessive wax, I just put extra wax. Just a little bit of extra wax coating. Well, it's closer to the center, so you would expect to be drawn out, but as you can see, not only is it drawn out in 8 days, but in 8 days they've also added a nice amount of nectar. Now the next frame, I did no foundation except a 1-inch strip at the top. Again, it's closer to the middle. So what they've done here is what you would expect bees to do. Here's a 1-inch strip that I stapled in, nothing here, and they've made larger size cell for drones. And they just added their own drone wax in 8 days and glued it to the bottom. So without anything in there, they did a nice job adding new wax. And they're not laying any drones now because it's August, but they're filling it with nectar. The frame next to it, I put excessive amount of wax on top of the plastic, and they've drawn it completely out in a week and added all the nectar to it. Now in the center you would expect things to be going nicely, so I put no beeswax added on the next one. So this just came slightly coated, and look at that. They've absolutely not drawn it out at all. The one next to it, I put an excessive amount, again added an excessive amount to it, right next to it, and they drew it out completely on both sides, and actually they're starting to cap it at the top a little bit in 7 days. The one next to this, you can kind of propolize together nicely. Again, I just added not an excessive amount, but just a little bit of wax on that comb. And the one next to it, I didn't add any wax. Now they're starting to put a little bit on it, but virtually nothing. And the one next to that, nothing at all. So it does show that if you add wax to these beeswax coated foundations, that it does speed up the ability of the bees to take the wax that you've added and then to do their own thing by adding more wax. Now this is a really strong colony. They've got this deep hive body here completely full of honey. It's already sealed over, ready to be taken off, and it weighs a lot of pounds. I'm a strong guy, and so I did my experiment by putting that super down here just above the brood nest area. Now in this colony, for me to get maximum honey production, on the same day, August the 3rd, that I put this super on, I also caged the queen to break the brood cycle for my Mite Control. So my queen is in a cage down here, and they're taking care of her in the bottom deep. And that allowed me, I had a little bit of brood in this box up here because the queen was up here and laid a little bit. So when I captured her, she just went ahead and was in the box, and now they turned all, this is actually ready to be harvested as well. So the neat thing about that video is that I actually placed a frame in there that had a 1-inch piece of foundation. I cut foundation on my saw and then I stapled it into the slot at the top. Look at all the foundation that they built below that. Now that answers a lot of the questions that some of you have been asking me. Did the bees use their own wax? And in this case, on this frame, they certainly did. They actually did. Now I'm gonna give you a secret. Now I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I'm actually doing another experiment. And what I'm doing is I'm coloring the wax that I add to the frame. And then after they draw it out, I'm going to go back in and I'm going to look at what color the comb is on the frame. Because my theory is if they used only the wax that I gave them, let's say I color it red, then the frame will have all red wax on it. But if they only use, let's say, half of the wax that I gave them, then I can cut it, slice it open and look down it, and I'll be able to see that they only have red on half of it, and the other half is new wax that they themselves generated through their wax glands. I'm running that test as we speak, but you're going to have to watch the future videos. You're going to have to subscribe. You're going to have to subscribe. That's all it is to it. Where's Bobblehead David? Oh, it's Labor Day. He's got the day off. Why am I working? Well, anyway, subscribe, click on the bell so you'll be notified when I make that new video about, do bees actually use the wax that I put on there? All of it? Or did they create some of their own wax? Now, I've already said I'm 99% sure they're not making wax, or they would have made the middle frame drawn out as well. They would have kept the momentum going. But I'm going to be 100% sure when I pull it out and see what's going on. So do keep watching that video. It's powerful, isn't it? So let me tell you about the book that Sherry and I wrote. A lot of people think I wrote this book. Sherry and I wrote it together. She wrote half of it and I wrote the other half. So it's as much of her book as it is mine. She doesn't always get the credit because I'm kind of the face of the channel. You don't see Sherry a lot. Where is she? Why isn't she in my YouTube more? But I'll have to get Sherry back in here more. But she wrote half, I wrote half. It's called Backyard Beekeeping, Everything You Know to Start Your First Hive. This is excellent for those of you that are starting in 2024 or 2025 or 2026. Yeah, let's just say if you're starting in the spring and you haven't got bees yet, you got to get this book. If you buy it off our website, guess what? We'll autograph it for you. And if you buy it off Amazon, you just won't get the autograph. So we'll leave a link in the description below. Now let me take you back to my most recent video where we completed the experiment to show you what that comb looks like once the bees have had 2 weeks to work on it after adding some heavy wax. Here it is right here if you missed it. I'll see you guys over there.